about 2 hours ago from my recording this video, Biden officially launched another round of illegal and impeachable airstrikes in Syria and in Iraq as well. As always, they're claiming that this was done in self-defense, which is complete horseshit. And the way that it's being reported in the media, of course, just repeating the propaganda from the U.S. State Department and the Pentagon uncritically, whatever they say is gospel, and to this framing it as it was done in self-defense. Now, to be clear, all the details, they aren't out yet. There are some reports of possible civilian casualties on the ground, and possibly even children being killed in this airstrike. None of it has been confirmed yet. And if there were civilians killed, it will multiply how outrageous this all is. But just the act alone of flying fighter jets into another country's airspace and dropping bombs on that country illegally is absurdity. So, like I said, they're framing this as, oh, this was an act of self-defense. They went after, quote, Iranian-backed militias in Syria and in Iraq, and those militias were allegedly firing. They were using drones to attack U.S. troops on the ground in Syria. Now, I'll be upfront. I can't confirm or deny whether this has happened, whether those groups have targeted U.S. troops in Syria over the last few months. But there's important context to understand here. First of all, they love to throw around that term Iranian-backed militias because it triggers this subconscious response from a lot of people in the United States because Iran has been so thoroughly demonized by the mainstream media here in the U.S. and this propaganda about them being a huge threat to the United States or whatever. Completely made up, completely untrue, and the only thing that narrative does is further the neocon imperialist agenda that we need to be in the Middle East and we have to fight them there so they don't attack us over here. And so, like I said, completely unfounded. But they thoroughly demonized Iran. So now that even if you just mention their name, anything that we've done, they almost sort of try to justify it because it's against Iran. Iran's the bad guy. So they said they went after Iranian-backed militias. Now, what it really is a bunch of different groups that came together when they were fighting against ISIS and the other jihadists who were trying to overthrow the Syrian government at the behest and with the backing of the U.S. government, I might add. So a bunch of different groups in the region banded together to fight back ISIS, and they built their own coalition. And so I think that term, quote, Iranian-backed militias is too overused and without enough context, because I really want people to understand that this group in general, what they are, because they will say Iranian-backed militias, and yes, they do get funding and they do get support from Iran, but really what they are is regular people who were faced with a choice. Are they going to fight back against ISIS, or are they going to let them take over their communities and massacre their communities? And they decided they were going to fight back against ISIS, and they got help where they could, and the help came from the Iranian government and the help came from the Syrian government. So understand that these were regular people defending their home from radical jihadists that we were funding. to overthrow their country. And so it's also worth noting that they deserve much of the credit for actually eliminating the ISIS threat or containing the ISIS threat in Syria and in Iraq. Because if it wasn't for them on the ground, they would have ran roughshod in the region and taken over control over Syria. So now these are the people that we're targeting with airstrikes. And to the absurdity of the idea that this was done in self-defense. Let me, for the sake of argument, I will grant you that they were using drones to attack U.S. troops in Syria. Say they were doing that. They would be well within their rights to do that, because guess what they'd be doing? They're the ones doing self-defense. Because under international law, and the UN recognizes this, if somebody's country is being illegally military occupied by an outside force, the citizens of that country have a right to self-defense. They have a right to defend themselves with actual violence. Because, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's their right to self-defense. So, the U.S., and let me be clear about this, has no invitation from the Iraqi government or the Syrian government to have a military presence in the country, yet we do anyway. We've been in Iraq since 2003. The Iraqi parliament has voted to expel the United States years ago. We refused to leave. The prime minister told us we need to leave. We refused to leave. And again, of course, the reason why we were there to begin with was an illegal war started in the Bush administration back, I said, like in 2003. So our whole presence there is illegal and unwanted. And the same in Syria. Because we were trying to overthrow the Syrian government. We were the ones giving weapons and funding and training to the jihadists that tore Syria apart. And that the groups that we're now bombing, they were the ones who had to defend against ISIS. So the Syrian government at no point did they ever invite us there. So over the last few years, our goal in Syria sort of changed, because at first it was, Bashar al-Assad is such a bad guy. He gasses people. We need to go after him. We need to bomb him, and we need to attack him, and we need to support the rebels. And then at some point along the way, it switched up to, now we have to fight ISIS. The same ISIS threat that we helped build up and prop up with weapons and training and money. So over the last few years, they switched up the goal, but still, we were never invited in by the Syrian government. We were always there illegally occupying parts of their country and building military bases and having military operations from within their country without their consent. And if you remember back in the Trump administration, he flat out admitted it. Now we're there occupying Syria's oil field and we're stealing the oil. So that's what we're still doing there to this day. And then Joe Biden and the Pentagon, they have the audacity to bomb Syria's allies on the ground in their country and claim it's self-defense. And you better believe if those groups attacked U.S. troops in Syria, they would not have done that unless they had the green light from the Syrian government. And the Syrian government does not want us in their country. We are illegally occupying their country, about a third of their country. And we refuse to leave. And then now, when the locals are resisting, we're going to unleash the might of the most powerful military on the planet on them and say we're doing it in self-defense because they're telling us that they don't want us in their country anymore. That makes absolutely no sense. And the fact that the media is dutifully reporting this in as if it's self-defense, it just, like I said the first time Biden did this, it makes me even more cynical, because it's not like they're all on accident got the same exact shitty take here. Oh, they say they're doing self-defense. Let's not look into it and see if that story actually holds up. Let's just every single news outlet, every single reporter report this as if it's fact. I don't think that they all got to that they made that shitty decision all on their own. It seems like this is what they're told they're allowed to say, and nobody's going to question it. Because like I said, a crucial piece to any type of claim to self-defense, you'd have to do something to explain away the illegal military occupation that we're doing there. Because if you acknowledge the occupation, then nothing we're doing there can be considered self-defense. Because if that was the case, then that whole law, the whole recognition by the international community that people have a right to self-defense, it would mean nothing, because any occupier could roll into any country and occupy some of their land, and then the second that they retaliate, well, now the occupying force could say, "Oh my God, did you see them? They shot rockets at us." So now, even though we're halfway around the world within their borders, and they're now shooting rockets at us, oh well, clearly that gives us license to have a full-on military operation in self-defense. It's self-defense. You saw they shot at us, right? Completely on purpose, missing the fact that it cannot be considered self-defense. Everything we are doing by definition in Syria is offensive, because they did not attack us. None of the groups there attacked us. We went and inserted ourselves in their country, and they don't want us there. And when they retaliate, which is in their legal right under international law, we're going to claim it's self-defense and continue the occupation, double down and triple down, and continue to do even more illegal airstrikes, violating their sovereignty and attacking people who are direct allies of the sovereign government in Syria. That's what we're going to do. So like I said, this is a developing story. I'm probably going to do an update later on in this week. To this point, as you'd expect, the progressives, elected progressives, whatever you want to call them, the charlatans, they haven't said anything about it. Last time, a few of them came out and finger wagged at Joe Biden and said, "Oh, you should have got congressional approval," or whatever else. Weak sauce, mealy mouth criticisms for what is an impeachable offense. An impeachable offense. Just like everybody's hair was on fire and there weren't enough fucking pearls in Washington, D.C. for everybody to clutch when he made that phone call to the president of Ukraine. And they literally impeached him over a phone call the first time they impeached him, about 2 years ago. It was over a phone call, an ambiguous ass phone call where nothing really happened. And there was enough fire in their belly to impeach him over that. But Joe Biden does illegal, unconstitutional airstrikes, war crimes in Syria again. And this is on top of them facilitating the genocide in Gaza, selling $1 billion of weapons to Israel as they're as they're leveling apartment buildings, as they're bombing hospitals, as they're bombing COVID research centers, as they were bombing some of the only media outlets' offices in Gaza. Joe Biden wouldn't give them more money. All of these things are impeachable. And yet, I haven't heard a single person, not a single so-called anti-interventionist, not a single anti-war politician in this country, not a single one of them has introduced articles of impeachment, or at the very least, call for an impeachment inquiry, an official investigation into these illegal war crimes, these unconstitutional airstrikes that the Joe Biden administration keeps doing without congressional authorization. Nobody's even asking for the bare fucking minimum of an investigation. So I'll see the response to this, but AOC, one of the most popular politicians in this country, and alleged anti-interventionist, which we all know is bullshit. Joe Biden bombed Syria, I think it's maybe 4 months ago now. Illegal, unconstitutional, impeachable airstrike. It's not that she gave a weak-ass response to that. She literally has ignored it for the last 4 months. It is in her job description to be a check on the executive branch, especially on issues of war, especially in the time we live in where they don't even give a fuck to pretend like they're constrained by any type of law, by any type of constitution, or even international law. It is your job as a member of Congress to be a check on the executive branch. And when Joe Biden first did these illegal airstrikes in Syria, she still, 4 months later, hasn't found it in herself to say a word about it. And she criticized Donald Trump when he did the same exact thing under his administration. So here we go again. Joe Biden's doing more illegal, unconstitutional airstrikes. And we'll see if the clock's ticking to see if she's just going to ignore this and sweep this under the rug and act like it didn't happen like the last time he did it about 4 months ago. So feels like Groundhog's Day. The imperialism never ends. The war crimes never end. There is absolutely no reckoning for it ever. And this is just what it looks like. This is just what endless war looks like. Thanks for watching the video. Please feel free to comment. And yes, I will be reading all the comments. And I will actually, I'll be responding to some of the comments. But I'll also pick 1 or 2 comments to post in, to respond to in video the next time I record. So anything you guys like to respond to this video, any thoughts, comments that you guys like to add, please feel free to leave in the comment section. And if you're able to contribute to the show, the links to Patreon are in the description box. If you feel like signing up, doing monthly donations, I also have a link to PayPal in the description box. There is a link to merchandise if you would like to support the show by buying t-shirts or a mug. The link to the merchandise is also in the description box. So I'm incredibly grateful for all the people who keep showing up, who keep supporting the show.